The first question I guess I could have for you, you're the CEO of LBRY. There are a lot of people, I think, like me, who sort of understand what it is, but maybe some people who completely have never even heard of it before. So I think maybe we should start there. What is LBRY? When did you come up with the idea? And what was the initial intent of it?
Yeah, so we like to say that library does to publishing what Bitcoin does to money. And now, if you don't know what Bitcoin does to money, that may not reveal very much. So what that really means is library enables services like YouTube to exist without there being that single point of control. So Bitcoin lets us build a financial system and a system of money that's not owned or controlled by the government or by a bank. Well, library does that, but for digital publishing, for sharing videos and things like that. If that's still too complex, the good news is it's really easy to use. Understanding how a car engine works can be complex, but it's not hard to drive one. And the easiest way to sort of get in the car and drive is to go to a website called ODYSEE, ODYSEE.com. And if people want to go and load that and check that out and see what it is, you'll see a site that looks a lot like YouTube. But what's going on underneath gets kind of complicated and kind of novel. And also, it turns out the government doesn't like it, nor does big tech. So we can talk about why.
Right. Okay. So I am showing people your this is the lawsuit, Securities and Exchange Commission versus LBRY, and I guess to you tell me if I'm understanding this correctly. What I read here is basically they're defining the money, the cryptocurrency, I guess, as an investment, not some kind of just a tool you use, I guess, when you're on the site. So then if it's considered something that's an investment, I'm buying up this stuff in order to see a return on it later, then that's considered a security, and that would be something you'd have to register with the government. You guys didn't do that. I that's what I read, so I may have totally got it wrong. So can you explain what we're looking at here? And I have it up for people to look at on the screen, but again, there's a link in the description. But go ahead, Jeremy. Why don't you give us your explanation?
Yeah, the legalities get complex in terms of exactly what a security is, and what we're dealing with is a law that's more than 100 years old, and they're attempting to regulate a brand new industry. So the standard they're advancing here is basically if a entity or an individual owns some cryptocurrency and sells that cryptocurrency while simultaneously doing any kind of work on that cryptocurrency, then that makes the token a security. So under this standard, basically every cryptocurrency in the United States would be a security inside of the United States. And so we think if the SEC wins this case against us, it would be absolutely devastating to a novel industry, and an industry that gives us one of the best chances to take back more control for ourselves from big tech and from Wall Street.
Can you explain to me how, so if I'm somebody who has these credits, how do you turn them into something that you can use?
Well, you can use them on the network. So you use in terms of the way that they work in the library system, you use a small amount of credits when you create a handle, a username. You use a small amount of credits when you publish something. You can use your credits to support and boost other people on the network, and you can also use the credits to tip or to pay for content, and then those credits can be exchanged via other services for dollars or Bitcoin or for whatever else you want to exchange them into.
But like, okay, say I'm ready to cash out and I want to go buy a car. How can I do something like that? How do I do that?
You can, although this is what the United States government wants to make a lot harder. So they want all of these exchanges to be, every single exchange to be tracked, even if I was just giving you a quarter. So imagine the same way that I could give you, a dollar in the street. They now want you to fill out a bunch of paperwork for every single exchange. They want the people who perform the exchanges to be highly regulated. to go through a bunch of compliance and have to follow a very large and complicated set of rules. You need to purchase a special license and all of these things. So we would like to actually provide the ability to exchange it ourselves in the service, so it's as easy as cashing out with PayPal or one of these other services. But there's a lot of regulatory complexities here. We thought we were trying to be conservative by pushing people out to third-party services, and then the government said, "Well, you push people out to third-party services," and that made it a security. So it's in general, our interactions have felt very sort of like Kafkaesque, where there's no right way to do it. And if we had done A, they would have said A is proof that it's a security. And if we had done B, they would have said B is proof it's a security. And of course, if you ask them and you say, well, what can we do that's legal? They say, we can't tell you. So, as someone I'm not a legal expert. I'm an engineer. I'm an entrepreneur. I've spent so much money and time attempting to understand how to follow the law. And I've literally begged them, and I spent more than $1 million trying to figure out how to follow the law. And it feels impossible. I've never felt so dumb, honestly. I rarely feel dumb. And I feel so dumb because it's like I can't understand it. And that's what it feels like. They've set out with this mindset that it must be illegal, and no matter what you do, it's going to be.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. So reading their description of the Securities Act in the lawsuit, they're saying they enacted a regime of full and fair disclosure requiring those who offer and sell securities to the investing public to provide sufficient, accurate information to allow investors to make informed decisions. So are they arguing, is their side of this, hey, if we don't do this, you guys could swindle the public with what you're trying to do? Is that their argument for why they need to do this? That it's like we're trying to keep the American consumer safe? I know there are plenty of arguments to be made about who they go after and whether that's really what they're trying to do, if they're just protecting big companies and you're the little guy, and so it's just easier and their buddies don't work for you, and so they aren't. But I'm just curious, if you were to just play devil's advocate for a second, what is their reasoning for doing this?
Well, so they're ostensible, right? I mean, some of what I think is their real reason that you said, but to play devil's advocate and express their ostensible reasoning, their purported reasoning, it would be what you said. But then again, of note, there's no complaints. We've had millions of people use LBRY. Millions of people have some of this cryptocurrency. Not a single person, to our knowledge, it's not alleged in the complaint, SEC has never said a single person has filed any kind of complaint. And we're an extremely transparent company. A big part of why they're bringing the case against us is we made it easy by being so transparent. So going all the way back to 2016, we've provided extremely public and detailed logs over how we've used all of the cryptocurrency that the company has. And I actually think that's a big part of why we're getting in trouble, is that, regulators are kind of told by their boss to go and produce enforcements. And if you're a lazy kind of regulator, why go after the bad guy who spends all this time hiding his tracks when you can go after the good guy who publicly says exactly what he's doing? And, so while I'm generally a very free market guy, I would like it all to be free. There are actors in the space who I think are scamming people or misleading people. And they're going after us, I think, because we've been so transparent and made it so easy. I'm
showing people ODYSEE right now. What I understood ODYSEE from a sort of a internet cultural standpoint is, I know a lot of people who are syncing their YouTube channels, for instance, on ODYSEE, so that if they get shut down on YouTube, there's a backup of what they're doing. And so kind of become known as somewhat of a free speech advocacy platform. If you're somebody who's doing stuff that the YouTubes or Facebooks, Twitters of the world don't want you to do, then this is a place that you can go, at least for now. And I don't know what happens with this lawsuit. And I guess I'll ask you that in a little bit, like where you think this is going to go. And I do want to talk about the Save Crypto campaign you guys started, but let's take the conversation real fast, if you don't mind, to what it's like entering this space right now, where there's a lot of, there are government hearings all the time about what are you doing to make sure that people aren't plotting attacks on your website and spreading misinformation. And then you have Google and YouTube and Facebook and Twitter as sort of the big guys in the house, and control a lot of what we're able to see, what we're able to talk about. So from your standpoint, I guess both being new to the scene of creating a platform that has to, I don't know if even the right word is compete, but has to live in the same space as these companies that seem to have an extreme amount of control, and perhaps control over the very regulators that are coming after you. What is it like working with in that atmosphere, not just with those companies, but also with the government being the way it is right now, so fixated on how companies like yours is operating?
Well, as someone who has, poked giants from time to time my entire life, it's actually a blast. No, I mean, there are parts of it where it's frustrating at times. It's not all fun, but I love that I'm working on building something that I think is genuinely needed and genuinely important and genuinely better than what came before. Um, I want to reflect on just a couple of things you said though, which was one is that the company and ODYSEE and LBRY, the protocol, none of this is at stake. What's at stake is basically my company's cryptocurrency, my company's funds, and the cryptocurrency space in general in the US is at risk of being chilled and or shut down by this lawsuit. But our work will go on, absolutely. We have investment money on standby that you just don't want to put it in the company if the government's going to take it all. So there's no risk of any of that happening. And part of the beauty of the design of LBRY, and this is why we think LBRY is a successor and not an alternative, is the design is you can have full ownership. So unlike when the government, and I do think the government does get involved with these big tech companies where they kind of knock on the door, because they do it with me and I'm 100th their size. They come knocking and they say, well, we could make life really hard for you if you don't do this. And they call you and they do it on the phone like the mafia would do. And that's seriously what they've done in our case is they get us on the phone, they don't put anything in writing, and they threaten to make our life hard and run up costs, which they then did. And I'm sure that this happens. I'm sure that politicians are putting pressure on the big tech firms. And so part of why our solution is so innovative is we eliminate the possibility for our company to have the same level of control that the traditional big tech companies do. And I think this makes it really appealing. It's not just about, and you'll see if you compare the ODYSEE homepage to say something like a BitChute, you're not going to, you'll find much more generalist content that's broadly appealing, content that's in no way at risk of getting deleted off of YouTube. So it's not just about stuff that, I think YouTube is deleting stuff that should be very mainstream at this point, but but it's not just about stuff that's at risk on YouTube. It's about anyone who thinks hey, why would I build up my following in a place that can get taken away from me at any minute, that can change the rules on me at any minute, that's taking 50% of every dollar that I make. LBRY does everything in this open source way. It's designed to be an open standard, and it's designed to be a much more fair and sort of equitable way of doing things. And so it's not, certainly there are people who come on because they're worried that they're going to get banned or deleted, but it's not the majority. It's not the reason the majority of people are coming on.
No, that's good to know. But yes, to your point about the community guidelines on YouTube, there is a community guideline, I think, for pretty much everything I do. So, I mean, sensitive topics, I think, is one of them now. So it's what is a sensitive topic? So great. Well, that's good to know. And yes, you're right. When I was showing people the screen, I go back to it in a second. It looked like there was just fun, family style material. And then, ex-TV journalists like me who are saying really, in my opinion, nothing really that crazy, but
it's like YouTube a decade ago. It's much more the independent creator and less the corporate, Stephen Colbert stuff that they're trying to.
Right, and they are pushing a lot of that corporate stuff now. I did a whole video about how it feels like I'm back in corporate news. I might as well just go back and work for corporate news because that's all they're ever promoting anymore. Somebody says currency choice is a matter of free speech. What do you think about that?
Sure. Yeah, I'll buy it. I mean, I think it's certainly an issue of freedom. I think that the government control over money is sort of it's getting less and less secret, but it's generally one of the more hidden ways they're, controlling, exerting control over people. The I mean, we've seen an incredible amount of inflation. I think that's not really getting reported. When the government prints money, that's a tax on everyone. It makes everyone's dollars worth less. And so I do think that there are a number of people inside of the government that are worried about cryptocurrency because controlling the financial system is a big part of how they exert control over people. And that's not just control over the money. You can look at the way that the government has controlled payment companies. There's two payment companies. You're not allowed to start a new one. And things like Operation Choke Point. I don't know if your audience is familiar with that. The government is very willing to exert pressure on these companies to stop people from being able to freely exchange things, to purchase legal things. So I do think if regulators are a little bit scared of cryptocurrency, for sure.
Okay. I'm not really quite sure what the intention behind this comment was, but I figure you'd be the right person to answer. Blockchain also seems like a Trojan horse to track your every move in perpetuity.
I don't think that that's true. It is true that blockchains do not have the same ability to erase things that is possible in other systems, but I do not think that that's true. It's possible to publish entirely anonymously to the LBRY network if that's your desire. We have a FAQ on that. You can probably just Google how to publish to LBRY anonymously, and it'll probably be the first result. And so it's absolutely, we offer a level of privacy and anonymity that I think is unparalleled, way better than anything you can do on the traditional big tech sites.
Mark says, if I understand what he said, he has spent $1 million trying to satisfy the government, but the government will not tell him what he needs to do. Is that correct? And then also, could you please explain to people what is the statue that is over your left shoulder? It's causing quite a bit of confusion.
We'll do that first. This is how I've been feeling lately. This is my Hulk statue. So I'm generally a pretty peaceful person, but I'm also willing to, rip my metaphorical shirt off and get down and fight when that's what's required. And I think that's what's required here. I think a lot of other cryptocurrency companies have, and I'm not calling them out. It's a reasonable choice, but they've kind of rolled over. And we're not going to, because we've made every attempt to do everything correctly. And the question is exactly correct. I mean, I've begged them, please tell me. We started proposing our own, because it's this game that they play where you're breaking the law. And then we're like, how can we follow the law? Well, we can't tell you. And okay, what if we do this? Well, do that, and then we'll tell you if you broke the law or not. It's they will not. There's no ability to get a proactive judgment. I would happily pay the government $2 million today, probably $5 million today, if they would just tell me how I could follow the law. That's all I want, is to know how to follow the law. I didn't set out to break the law.
I don't know if you should have said that. They're definitely going to probably Oh, sure, $5 million, Jeremy.
No, that would be great. We went through settlement negotiations. We've had one requirement that we've been unwilling to buckle on, which is you have to give us guidance as how to operate legally in the future. And the only thing that they've said is, no, you have to admit that you did something wrong. You have to pay us, and we won't tell you how to do it right next time. We can give you no feedback. And that's what we've refused to buckle on. If you can't tell me how anything, point me to a document, point me to a law. This is $1 trillion industry, and that has, where it's complete regulatory uncertainty. Everyone's guessing, everyone's scared, everyone's racking up huge legal fees, attempting to follow the law. It's disastrous. It's so wasteful. And so, the way they've acted, I think, is just flat out disgusting, is my opinion.
I talk about this farmer, Joel Salatin, quite a bit on my channel. Have you heard of him?
I know him. Yeah,
okay.
He's great.
Have you read Everything I Want to Do Is Illegal? It's one of my favorite books of his.
I'm familiar with the concepts. I haven't read it cover to cover.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show that. So I was an environmental reporter for the last 5 years of my career. And so I'm not one of those people that is anti-regulation. I've had an anarcho-capitalist on my channel talking about all that. So I'm not on the end of just regulation just ipso facto terrible, but I'm also not on the side that's regulation is ipso facto great, because depending on how the regulation is written and who it's written for and how it's enforced and who it's enforced for and all that stuff, which is a people problem, and people in government have relationships with people in business. And so are they really, is it really an objective practice of just, here's the rule, it's here to help people, and we regulate, no matter who you are or what kind of power and influence you have, we're treating everybody the same. And reading his book, it was just so interesting to see how much sense it makes now, to see how, like, we got to this system in our food industry where we have a lot of big corporate farms, and the smaller farms have a really hard time unless you're a really small backyard farm, a really small local farm, you just go into the farmer's market, or you're a really massive farm. But say the person in the middle is really has a hard time, because they have to live in the space where they're sort of treated like a bigger farm, because they're not just, going to the farmer's market and necessarily always just selling direct to consumer, but they can't grow because how do you get to be a Purdue or a Tyson or something like that if you're dealing with all the, and he talks a lot in that book about, I think he calls them the mafia too, or something like that. Like, the regulators coming onto his farm and just demanding things, paperwork out of nowhere. And if you don't have it, then they can shut your entire practice down. And so it's just interesting to see how that varies, whether you're talking about crypto, or you're talking about farming, that people are having very similar problems and talk about the same issues. So I bring that up just to say, hey, it's not just money and business that we're talking about here. There are people that just want to raise cows, and do it in a way that is good for the environment and good for people's health. And even they're having a hard time with the same stuff that you're talking about. Okay, so why not move offshore? Daily Jerk Daily asks you.
So that wouldn't really change anything. The United States would still say that these laws apply to the cryptocurrencies that are exchanged in the United States. So it is something that we're looking at. I'm someone who, while I have problems with a decent amount of America, like, I want to love my country. The ideal, that's sort of the American ideals that I was sort of taught. Like, I believe in those, and I wish basically that my country was living up to them. And I don't. So it's not something that, like, I want to do. But I also think that it's not something that would solve the problem, because it's not a matter of where the company is located. If you're operating inside of the U.S., they can say that it's still a security, and everyone in the United States still needs to do all of these things. And I think that that's ultimately what they're interested in, because the idea that people could be exchanging these tokens without everything being tracked and cataloged by the government, I think is what the regulators are ultimately scared of. And so they'll do this case, and then they'll move on to the next one and the next one. And so this one would set a really bad precedent that would help them do that.
Bob Wildfish, administrative courts are kangaroo courts. And Rob says, ask if he has considered the threat crypto poses to the established order, consequences, and benefits. You sort of already talked about that, but do you want to add anything?
I'm not. I think there's a phrase there that may have a specific meaning I'm not familiar with. The threat that it poses to what? To the established
order.
Just to the establishment.
Yeah. Consequences and benefits. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think cryptocurrency is a threat to Wall Street. I think it's a threat to big tech, and I think it's a threat to basically, in general, the sort of control over the narrative that a small group, and I'm not alleging this and too many explicit conspiracies here, but we've seen attempts to sort of control the narrative only ramp up over the last several years, and I think that cryptocurrency in general is or blockchain in general is a threat to those types of people who want to say, hey, you only discuss or think ideas in this sort of narrow set of viewpoints. And anyone who kind of thinks that way, who wants to prescribe what others are thinking or doing, is going to be worried about blockchain. Or ought to be, actually. So I can understand it. I mean, that's the mindset of the people doing this is, the government needs to be seeing everything. The government needs to be observing everything. And so it makes sense if you have that kind of mindset to be worried about this technology.
Right. And it does also seem like when you're talking about, and this is just another thing I've seen in other issues, whether it's talking about, what information you should be able to discuss related to COVID or other issues, is that you tend to seem to have like the people who are, I'd rather take the risk of misinformation getting out there in order to protect the stuff that challenges the mainstream narratives, or the people that are like, no, we need to suppress that and there needs to be some kind of regulation. I've just noticed that in that conversation that there tend to be the sort of they're the more risk averse people, and the others who are just like, whatever, sacrifice liberty for safety, you don't deserve either, kind of Ben Franklin folks. And I'm not quite sure those two get very far when they communicate. I've talked to both sides and I've had them communicate with each other, and I'm not, it almost seems like a personality thing to me, like my husband doesn't mind when, well, actually, no, I should use the car as an example. Like, I don't care if a few of my my organic trail mix, nuts end up in the seat, but he really does care, and that we're never going to be able to compromise on this one. He's always going to think the car needs to go in for a detail, and I'm fine with a few nuts being on the floor. So that's just to say, I don't know where we go with that and who's going to end up winning that battle, but it seems like just, having more options like yours, then I don't know, maybe we live in two separate worlds. Everybody can live their safe world on YouTube where there's a million community guidelines, and those of us who are more like Wild West types can go to ODYSEE. Okay, so this is another statement that I'd like you to respond to. Crypto seems like what the stock market is doing, but in the other direction. It's still generating money without doing actual generative work. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think there are. I don't actually encourage crypto as an investment strongly. I think it could make sense to put a small amount of your money into it, not necessarily in LBRY, but just in general, because it may be very big in the future. But I support cryptocurrency because of the types of empowerment that it allows, the type of sort of freedom that it allows. So I think everyone should be learning about and using cryptocurrency because of what it enables, not because you're going to like 10x your money or whatever. And you should always be skeptical of those kinds of claims. There's generally no free lunches. There's no investment that's guaranteed or anything like that. And so I don't think you should necessarily be getting into crypto for investment reasons. I think you should get into crypto because of the types of things that it enables. Because I didn't, to react a little bit to what you said before. Every good, I came at this from science side. It's sociologically, however you want to think about it, every good idea that you like, however you want the world to be, whether you're a progressive or a conservative or anywhere in the possible ideological spaces, at some point, the ideas that you believe in were new. At some point, they were minority viewpoints. And so to say that, these minority opinions can't be expressed, to say that the standard for publishing to YouTube is higher than the standard to practice medicine, which is one of the crazier things that's been established with the COVID stuff, right? These people get deplatformed, but their licenses aren't taken away, which is a weird kind of hypocrisy. And so I think that I don't know if principles are real. I think a lot of people have say, oh, be principled when they lack power, and then when they have power, they get rid of their principles. But if you can step back and consider the fact that every great idea was at one point a minority, then we have to have for minority viewpoints to be expressed, even if you think that they're wrong.
Out of all the crypto projects, why you guys? MK47 asks.
I don't know. I think about this question a lot, and you can see the reaction on Twitter and other places as people are like, why are they going after LBRY? Because we're a bunch of nerds. We've been very honest. We've been very transparent in a space where not everyone is one more conspiratorial than the other. So the sort of non-conspiratorial one is kind of the one that I gave, which is simply that we made it easy because we were very transparent. It's like kind of like if you are taking the perspective which the SEC is taking, that every cryptocurrency is a security, we're kind of like shooting fish in a barrel because we were super public with everything that we did. So that's the sort of non-conspiratorial one. The sort of more conspiratorial one is the case was open for 3 years. We weren't disagreeing, we were complying. All the evidence in the case is on our website and public. Even the things that they're putting in the complaint, we didn't go out and delete them. All the posts are still there. And they waited until we were seeing record adoption in response to some of the big tech censorship, and that's when the case came down. So I do think the case was open for more than 3 years. under what they're alleging, they could have brought it in the end of 2018. They waited until 2021. And I think that that is like, it's a little bit weird to me, but I have no positive evidence. I don't want to like state that they were doing something that I don't have evidence for, but I find it suspicious.
Courtney asks, how is the exchange rate for LBRY set? Sorry if I missed it. I'll rewatch later. How is crypto similar or dissimilar to bartering?
It's a freely floating price. So it's set the same way any other market price is. It's set, the way the price for any other commodity or things like that would be set. So it's the law of supply and demand. So we don't control the price, and we don't attempt to do that.
Okay, Bob, why has Bitcoin been recently getting positive headlines and corporate acceptance while LBRY gets sued?
I mean, that's another good question. I think possibly because, well, one, the government doesn't control the corporations, and so I think some corporations are realizing that the government doubled or tripled or whatever it is the amount of money in circulation over the last year and a half, and the prices of everything are going up, and so people want to put their money into something that's a little bit more solid or a little bit more stable, and it can't just be inflated away by the government. And so I think corporations are probably doing it for that reason. On the government side around Bitcoin, Bitcoin is, while certainly one of the most interesting blockchain projects out there, a lot of it has already kind of gotten under the government's thumb. A lot of it is going through large exchanges. It costs, $10 or something like this to send a transaction. So it's not really good as that peer-to-peer money. It is good for, having this store of value that you can control. But Bitcoin, in my opinion, did not live up to its promise as peer-to-peer cash. It might still via some of the things that people are working on. I'm not trying to knock on Bitcoin. I love it. But it is, in terms of ones that the government has control over, they probably have more control over Bitcoin than any other cryptocurrency. So they may be, in fact, be the least threatened by Bitcoin. But even today, Peter Thiel was saying that the government should be more threatened by Bitcoin and need to do more about it.
That's an interesting statement from him. The establishment went after LBRY because it was releasing live streaming ability, a true threat to YouTube. I do think that's an interesting statement. That's from Chad, because that is one of the values of ODYSEE, for instance, right? That you can, sync up, like, say, for instance, my YouTube channel. And there are a lot of new platforms that are come out there that haven't done live streaming. So I'm, maybe you could talk a little bit about that, how you guys decided to have that feature, why you don't see that on other new platforms that are coming out. And do you think that has anything to do with what's going on here? Because I have interviewed independent journalists, for instance, who get dinged quite a bit for just live streaming events that are actually happening. And I kind of wonder.
Have you talked to,
yeah, go ahead.
Have you talked to Ford
Yeah,
Fisher?
he's been on the channel. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah. What a case that is. One of the craziest. That's like at the top of my list of like most egregious things they've done.
Well, let's explain real fast. Do you want to tell people what? Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. So Ford went to the riots that happened at the Capitol, pulled out his camera and recorded what was happening. Wasn't really giving commentary. To the extent that he was giving commentary, it's very factual, and uploaded the video to YouTube. Had the video deleted, had his channel demonetized. YouTube has continued to say you can't upload this video. It's literally just footage of the event. The footage was used in Trump's impeachment hearing. The footage was used by CNN and other mainstream sources. And YouTube has made the, I think, absolutely insane statement. This is so insane that you cannot upload this footage without contextualizing it. Without content, like what a dystopian kind of notion that people can't be trusted to judge the events with their own eyes. You have to tell them what to think to be allowed to upload this footage. And I think it's absolutely awful.
You're damned if you do and damned if you don't, right? Because like what you were saying was, okay, like you try to follow the rules, but they won't tell you, but you have to, and for YouTube, it's like, first they say, no, we just want you to upload. You have to tell the truth about these things. You can't, no lying, right? No disinformation. You can't say this and you can't say that because that's all outside of the window of acceptable ideas. So just upload the truth. So you literally have Ford uploading the truth of what's happening because he's just putting up raw footage. That's all it is, just for you to see. And now they're like, no, actually, you need to editorialize it. Now you need to you need to tell us the context, and literally telling him that he has to go find another person to talk about an issue. And it blows my mind because it feels like I am back in a corporate editorial news meeting where I have a manager that's like, you have to talk to this person, and what about this person, and it's predetermined, that these are the voices that we think are acceptable for this topic, whereas these people are a little cuckoo and they're on the outside, so we're not going to let them on. And it's crazy to me that he's literally trying to do what you thought originally they wanted, which is, I'm giving you the opportunity. Like, here it is. I'm not giving my opinion. I'm not trying to slant it. I'm literally just uploading raw footage. And they're like, nope, now we need you to editorialize exactly the content. So yeah, I think that's totally nuts. But anyway, sorry to cut you off, but to talk about, the live streaming capacity itself, I'm just curious what you think about that too.
As tempting as it is to sort of fan the flames of theories that benefit me, I do not think the live streaming is actually related to them bringing the case. I think we have a very good team of engineers, very, very talented people, and I think that's why we were able to get, if you look at something like Rumble or whatever, that's a 15-year-old or 10-year-old product that was kind of like stagnating and is attempting to rebrand itself. But like the product's just, I think it's kind of just okay. And we have a team of very capable people, and we can move very fast. And we got live streaming done in a matter of weeks once we decided to prioritize it. So I think that's why we have it, and other people don't. I think, but I think this stuff, what's going on with media, it's one of the weirdest things I've experienced in my lifetime, and it's one of the sort of biggest issues I think in America and in the world. And I said this to you at the beginning before I think we got on the program, that I think the future of the media is people doing what you're doing, what Ford is doing. That people that basically every media brand has lost the people's trust. Even the people that I watch on the sort of corporate, that are still associated with the corporate press, it's because that individual has become someone that I think is trustworthy. The brands, I think, have really ruined themselves, and the cost of doing it has fallen so much that the people that are the best at doing it can strike out on their own, can have more control, and not have to be kind of put in a box by the brand. So I do really think that the future of journalism is people doing the kind of thing that you're doing.
I tell people that all the time, to go by individual and not by brand. And then also something that I really like that I saw on Brian Christian's channel, which it's his website, The Last American Vagabond. He also is on ODYSEE. Is that he tells on every one of his stories, he always says, hey, research this for yourself. Like, don't trust us. And so I pay attention when people are like, hey, don't just believe what I'm saying. Go look at it for yourself, versus the other motto, which is, don't listen to anybody else. They're crazy. Listen to us. So which is what the sort of, that corporate hegemony, am I saying that right? What they want is the opposite of that.
I mean, the monoculture. I mean, we got a hit piece from the New York Times, and they act all nice, and they have one clear agenda, which is to smear you with the racism or the white supremacist angle. We had tens of millions of people using LBRY. Our largest surge in the last month was from people from Taiwan, of all places, which I don't think is in any way related to any kind of alt-right movement, right? And they don't mention that in the article, and they go find someone with like 3 followers, one drop in a huge bucket, and they completely amplify that for the story. And the mainstream, I don't like calling them the mainstream press, the corporate press, they have become the biggest champions of censorship. they're the ones saying people can't be trusted to have conversations
Mhm.
by themselves. We need a
Mhm.
moderator in all of the
Mhm.
rooms. Clubhouse is dangerous.
Yeah.
Library is
It's
dangerous. I,
dangerous.
it's so weird to me,
Yeah, it
um,
is.
because it's so it's just so different from 10 or 20 years ago, the way that the press
Mhm.
would have been acting. I mean, maybe I was misled back then. I don't know, but it feels alien to me. Like like they were taken over by like
Mhm.
pod people, and I'm like the only one who sees. Not the only one, obviously, but that I'm like,
Right.
yeah,
No, I mean, I totally feel you on that one because I'm somebody who comes from that world. So imagine I'm one of them. So I even have more of an affiliation with. It's like my, I don't necessarily say a family, but it's sort of like my tribe. This is where I came from, and I don't even understand some of the things that I'm hearing coming out of their mouths right now, uh, as a purported purveyor of and defender of free speech and the free press in America. And it just, these things do not go together. And I remember after Trump got deleted from Twitter, seeing one of my former coworkers say, "Okay, well, we got him off Twitter. Now we got to go after all those little sites that your grandma's retweeting." And I'm like, "What?
yeah,
What are you saying?
what,
This is
what,
so
yeah,
that's why I take it so seriously on my channel, because I want to make sure, not just because a lot of this is kind of preaching to the choir. I have a lot of people that follow that are like, yes, that agree, free speech, free speech. But I hope that slowly there will be journalists who are like, maybe, Allison, she was one of us. She wasn't crazy. She won a couple Emmys. She's got a Society of Professional Journalists award. She seemed like a pretty, solid thinker. Maybe we should let, because right now I feel like it always gets framed as exactly what you said. It's like, pick this extreme example and then discredit it based on that. So we don't have to worry about that. Like, I had a friend the other day who, she's in the business still, and we were talking about somebody who made an I Quit video, which is becoming very popular nowadays. And she put it on Rumble, and she's like, of course she put it on Rumble. And then back before that, it was like, of course they're on Parler, so because that's how they say, they like, we don't have to contend with the ideas of what the person's saying because they're on this dirty site that's where truth goes to
yeah,
die, not us, where we shine light on the truth. So that's why I'm like, no, I'm one of you. I won your awards. I got your door prize. And there's no way you can look at me and say that I'm just a Looney Tune person on some, crazy tirade somewhere, that what you're going to have to do is contend with the fact that you guys let me in your club, so either you need to figure out that you made a mistake by letting me in your club, or you're going to have to contend with my ideas because I'm one of you. And I really hope that some people, I do know people that are paying attention to the channel that are still in the industry. I feel like I have a few moles in some pretty big networks. And so, just, there are people that are in the business that already see this, but I think they're nervous to speak up. So I hope that paving the way, whether you're doing it in tech or I'm doing it for the corporate press, that those people at least who are already there, who are thinking about this and questioning what the hell is going on around them, will feel more empowered to speak up in editorial meetings, more empowered to talk to their coworkers when they're hearing everybody cheering like they're at a football game, not totally unaware that there are other viewpoints, that they just think that everybody thinks exactly the same way, and that's expressed in their newscast, and that they should silence everybody else. That those people will be the beginning of it, that they'll start speaking up, and that slowly will shift that culture. I don't know if I have a ton of hope, but that's at least part of why I do what I do. I want to switch you back to this, because I think this is an interesting question about cryptocurrencies. And Nick asks, so mining versus buying what is already available, how do you tell people where they have to stop making currencies? How do you enforce that? If it's not enforced, does the value collapse essentially? So like, how is there anything that, like the US dollar, like, is there regulation for inflation versus not? And how does that all work? Do you mind talking a little bit about that?
sure. And so, well, in the case of LBRY, there's no inflation, so there's a fixed amount, and as it gets used more, you'll need actually less of it, because each token ends up being the well, things change. I shouldn't. I'm not allowed to express certain economic principles. But the answer is that you allow competition, in my opinion. Like, as long as people aren't lying, they're not misrepresenting things, and they're being honest about the system that they've built and how it works. let people buy them and let them compete. And it's not like, yeah, again, you don't do it as an investment. If you buy $5 or $10 worth of library credits, that's going to be enough to use the system for probably your entire life, you know? And so if library fails and it ends up being worthless one day, all right, you're out $10. You know, it's like, I don't think this is the kind of thing. We're not telling people to go buy thousands of dollars worth of tokens. We're trying to have a system where, you know, everyone needs a small amount. It shouldn't be a large amount of money. And then we can have this system where we have much more control over how we publish. And I don't want the government to protect me from a competitor. If someone thinks that they can build a better system than we built, like, bring it on, do it. That's how the world gets better. So my answer would be, you know, don't let people lie, don't let people cheat, don't let people defraud people. That's a perfect, you know, that's something that the government can go ahead and do, but don't make it, don't completely destroy this cutting edge technology that's going to be as big. I think it's going to be as impactful to society as sort of the internet was. I think we're still early in terms of all the impact that this is going to have, and much the way the government did with the internet. There's a time period where people said, where we had senators saying, you know, people should have to have a license equivalent to a driver's license to go online so everyone knows who they are. You know, the government will update its opinion as they realize that this is something that people really like and need, or at least that's my hope. And that's also why I want people to sign our petition, which you can find at Help LBRY Save Crypto, to help show that this is something that that people care about and want to be able to freely use.
I'm going to show that website in 1 second. I just wanted to take a couple questions before we go to that. So, okay, Charlie Foxtrot, when you can silence the U.S. president, you can silence anyone. And I think, you know, there was a lot of pushback even in Europe on that, which was interesting, because they don't even necessarily have the sort of constitutional free speech laws that we do. And then this is funny. His caller is anarchic. Because you're the left collar. Somebody said it's upsetting my OCD.
Oh my gosh! Now
Let's see. Yeah, pull it down on the back. There you go. There you go. See, we have a very honest group. Perfect. But it fits the bucking the system anyway. Why have your collar be synchronistic on both sides?
Screw the man.
Wear your collar up. Well, not if you totally pop it, then
Stop
you're
pressing
if you totally pop it, then you're in a fraternity, and then you're back to being in the establishment. But okay, everybody appreciated that. Thank you. Okay, so let's see. I am going.
Wait, was there a question?
No, I guess I thought I had a question, but it looks like they were all comments.
I got distracted.
Let me see if I have any ones that I want to get to before we go right over to your site. Yeah, Kerry Floyd is having OCD from his collar being popped. LOL, as someone said. All right, we fixed that, everybody. So just calm down.
Yeah, I obsess much more over my software than my physical appearance. So yeah, don't judge too much.
Someone asked about missing the window of opportunity. Crypto dropped from $9 to 1 cent in that amount of time. So I guess that would be maybe a question before we go. We'll go to the website next for saving crypto. I guess you've already discussed that you think that this is going to, continue to grow and be a big thing. But dealing with the government, because this is always my concern, say with these platforms and being independent, is on one hand, the optimist in me says that the market will rise to the occasion. The other side of me is like, yeah, but you have this behemoth government now, and you have a corporate press that's aligned with its ideas. It just feels very daunting. So maybe what go a little bit more into how do you have an optimistic future with all these pieces at play? We'll stop there, and I'll ask you one last question before we go to the safe crypto stuff.
Yeah, I'm one of those awful people who's probably just fundamentally optimistic, so tough to deal with. But the answer is that, like, I do believe that even despite all of the dystopian things that are going on, like this corporate fusion with journalism and the government, that things are getting better. Entrepreneurs and innovators are creating new things. What we built is genuinely better. It's growing very rapidly. it's not possible for the government to shut this down. I do not think that it's possible. Again, this lawsuit does not destroy the network. It does not destroy the technology. It hurts the people making it, but it's not going to get destroyed. And I think that we may have a sort of rough battle over the next couple of years, but I'm someone who believes that the good guys do win in the end most of the time. Something that I'll also say is it takes time. It's not, it only takes 5 or 10 years for a a, a dominant incumbent to get taken down by that sort of upstart. And so when you're in the middle of it, it can feel really impossible. It can feel really, daunting. But you can plot our exponential growth, and I do think that if we can keep it up, we're gonna win in the end, and it might not even take that long. And so it can be, and I also think that like attempting to solve it through regulation is not the answer. Attempting to have the government control big tech is, I think, at least with big tech, you have some competition. With the government, you have basically none, and so I think that'd be very dangerous and a bad idea. You can come on, go on to ODYSEE.com right now, create an account, follow Allison. You'll get a little bit of cryptocurrency, and you can be part of, building the next thing, and be early on what's going to eventually supplant big tech.
I'm glad you brought that up because yes, I should be officially on ODYSEE. I did create my platform there a few weeks ago, but I hadn't synced my channel. So is that official? Have we synced it? We think?
Yeah, people can follow you. I bet that my team started this sync sometime during this call, so you might not have any videos on there yet. If not, they'll show up very soon. But your channel exists, so if people type in Allison Morrow, it should come up and they can click follow.
I'm going right now because I'm showing everybody. Yeah, it looks like it's I have 10 followers. Woo! So there I am, everybody. And this is the big reveal, my debut. How many people get to debut their new channel with the CEO of the company?
Oh, some of the videos are coming on too. I see. I just reloaded.
Yeah, they're there.
Yeah, great.
So
yeah, I quit TV news. I love that. Yeah,
short, simple, basically sums it up, and that's pretty cool. I don't know how I already got 10, but if you guys want my link, it's in the description of the video as well. In addition, is the link to this. Help LBRY SAVE CRYPTO.com. Help LBRYSaveCrypto.com. What's the big deal? This lady shocked with really great bangs and hair color. I have to say, if I could be a ginger, that would be the one thing. If I come back in another life, I would like to be a ginger. But can you tell me what is the big deal? I know you've already sort of touched on this in some detail, but in case people are just joining, Jeremy Kauffman, CEO of LBRY, what is at stake, in your opinion, with this particular lawsuit from the SEC?
So I think blockchain is one of the technologies that gives us the greatest chance to take back some of the control by big tech and Wall Street. And the SEC is suing my company, which is a blockchain company that's attempted to do everything right. They're not alleging a fraud. They're not suing any of us personally. But what they think they're trying to do is set a standard that will make it very difficult for cryptocurrencies to exist and be freely traded and exchanged in the United States. So I think that if the SEC wins this case against my company, it will be very damaging to an industry that I think offers one of the best hopes to solve some extremely pressing problems.
Have you had any alliances with other groups dealing with this that are like, hey, we got to support you guys because this could affect us in the long term? Or do you feel like you're kind of on an island with this issue?
Yeah, we're getting some big support from politicians here in New Hampshire, and they've been offering us a lot of support, and we've been getting a lot. So this isn't all announced yet, so I don't want to start naming some of the names, but we're working with a number of other companies in the industry, put something together to kind of have a more concerted response, because we're not the only one. I mean, I think a tremendous amount of companies have cases open with the SEC. Remember, our case was open for 3 years before they decided to bring it. Actually, I said remember. I don't even know if I've said that. So I think that this is a number of companies are facing this threat, and if we allow them to sort of pick us off one by one, then we're all going to lose.
That sums it up pretty well. Does LBRY have the enormous gas fees of ETH? I have no idea what that means.
It does not. It's very cheap to use.
Okay. What is a gas fee? What does that mean?
It's basically a transaction fee.
Oh, okay. Got it. Thank you for explaining. So, all right. Well, do you think big tech censorship is equivalent to book burning? Dora asks.
I'd say it's pretty close in terms of how disturbing it is. And I find book burning disturbing. And I think, I found the deplatforming of the sitting president, of Ford Fisher and other journalists, of licensed medical doctors. I think that someone on is one of the most disturbing events in my lifetime. I think everyone should be disturbed by it.
Okay. Jeremy, is there anything that I did not ask you that you would like to add? And I should say, I have been trying to clip the end of my live streams with something interesting to put on, say, ODYSEE or, my other sites as an incentive to go to more free speech friendly platforms. What do you think would be good exclusive content from you? Is there anything I didn't ask that would just be an interesting comment? You could maybe tell us, is there another statue somewhere in your office that you could show us besides the Hulk? What do you think would be an interesting thing that people don't ask you about a lot, but would be interested to know? And then
I wish I had a juicy secret. Okay, I have something here.
Okay, wait, before you reveal it,
okay.
Everybody go to my new ODYSEE page. All right, Allison Morrow, the link's in the description if you would like to see what Jeremy is about to show you, the CEO of LBRY.